thank you so much to those of you who helped us last week move everything, the whole block from 1900 to 1800 Church Street. Can we give it up for everybody who helped with the moving party? It was a big deal. So we moved 99.9% of the things that we had at 1900 here. And there was one thing that we left remaining, that we decided that the stage that I'm standing on right now, it is super heavy, super bulky. And the only way to get it up here, because it wouldn't fit in the elevators, would be to take it up the stairwell. And so we said, you know what? We're going to move all the stuff, but we're going to pay somebody to do that. I mean, because that's between them and their employer, their back, whatever is going to happen. That's not on us. We're going to pay somebody to do that. So we were able to get everything up here, in a relatively timely, efficient, carefree manner. But it was the final thing on Tuesday. We paid somebody to get the stage up, and it didn't take but one entry into the building when the legs of one of these stage pieces fell off, and you might have seen a broken window on your way in, and you will see it on your way out, because the movers, God bless them, there's just a little moment that things got a little out of control, and a window was broken. So welcome to the building, Bethel Midtown. That was a great entry to our new tenant, neighbors and things like that. But it happened. Things were supposed to go one way, but the plan had to pivot because it got a little bit out of control. And I think that at times we've all experienced similar things where you had a plan for it to go one way, and then you realized that you were less in control of that plan than you wanted to be. That perhaps it was something a little bit more drastic, because that's a very fixable problem, right? It's going to be a week or so, and someone's going to come and they're going to patch the window and all of those things. But it can get a little bit deeper than that at times when you realize you're not as in control of your life as you wished that you would be. It could be that perhaps you work hard, but you end up without a job again. It could be that you take care of your health, and then the diagnosis comes anyway. It could be that you save money only to get financial hit after financial hit after financial hit. You realize quickly that you're not as in control of your life as you might like to be. That the inputs you have don't always correspond with the outputs that are dealt to you. Has anybody ever felt that way? Have you ever felt just hit in the face with something you did not expect? I know that we all probably have. We're going to be in the book of Romans today as we continue the series. And as I remember which pocket the clicker is in, that was a nice little Macarena to find it. It's here. So if you're not familiar with the Bible, this is about where Romans is at, about 80% of the way through. I do encourage you to grab a paper Bible and bring it next time. If you don't have one, we'd love to give you one. But in Romans, they're facing a similar situation. This is Paul writing to the church in Rome, the Jesus community there, trying to follow Jesus. And it seems like nothing is going according to plan. And he goes and lists in the earlier parts of this chapter, in chapter 8, as we've been going through the last few weeks, he's talking about what's been happening. He talks about brokenness. He talks about the yearning for something better coming, the groaning even inside us, waiting for something to be renewed, and waiting past the suffering, waiting past the persecution, and all of these things. You have to think about, for us, we've had bad days before, but it's not very often that we get dragged out of our homes and executed. Like, we've had bad days, but it's not often that we get thrown in prison for believing in Jesus. But that's what we're walking into. Which isn't to minimize that you've had bad days, but think about in your darkest day, or in their darkest day, Paul writes a lot of encouraging things, and then he gets to this beautiful and at times frustrating verse in the scriptures. It says in verse 28, in the face of all these things, he says, and we know that in all things God works for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Can I say something that I don't know if we're really allowed to say in church? Does he really, though? Like, seriously, does he actually? Because I know, I think I love God. I think that God's called me. I think he's called us. You're here. So, I think we're a community that generally loves God, but I know stuff in my life, And stuff in some of the lives of the people, even in this room, aren't good. Things are hard. Things are unexpected. Things are out of our control. And if you think about on your darkest day, maybe it's happened to you. You had a well-meaning person come right after the miscarriage, come right after the bankruptcy, come right after the eviction. So you know what? God works all things together for the good of those who love him and are called according to your purpose. I mean, if that doesn't offend you just a little bit, then maybe we haven't sat with it long enough. You're telling me that losing a loved one is going to be boiled down to a learning experience? Really? But this is what Paul chooses to say. He says all the things, the persecution, the suffering, and the things far beyond your control are working together for your good. I know there's been times in my life that I believed this out of obligation, because you're supposed to believe stuff in the Bible, and you have the dark times, and especially if you're a pastor, you're really supposed to believe it. So there's been times that it's kind of our thing. No, but there's been times you believe it out of obligation. I know in theory that God's working it out or going to work it out for good, but right now it just doesn't feel that way. And you think about the Romans listening to this. Again, we've had dark days, but they're thinking about the people who used to go to their church that don't anymore because they're in prison. They're thinking about the family members that they've lost. And they say, you're going to tell me this is all going to turn out for good? As we've been in this series brand new, as we talk through the book of Romans up until this point, it's pretty encouraging, and some might even say that this is encouraging as well. There's people who have tattoos of this verse, people who probably have it on throw pillows across America. There's people who have this, they've posted, they've tweeted or X'd, or do we say X now? We don't tweet anymore. Do we tweet on X? Is that... I don't know. But, you post all of the things. It's an encouraging thing. But at the end of the day, it challenges something deeper than just comfort. It challenges our desire to control our situation, because if God is working all things together, then it means we aren't. Which is a difficult spot to be. This last week, I was in North Carolina. And so as we were going there, we had the wonderful opportunity to go up to Chicago to get over to North Carolina. I'll let you do the math on that one. God bless. Yeah, I wasn't the pilot. It didn't happen. So we went to Chicago to get to North Carolina for whatever reason. And if you know anything about Chicago, it's a generally windy place. It's been a little extra windy the last few weeks, including Monday when we were traveling. And so the pilot was forced to take a little bit of a creative route to get to Chicago. Now, it's already a creative route to get to North Carolina, but what was supposed to be about a 2-hour plane ride turned into a 3.5-hour plane ride rather quickly. And by quickly, I mean slowly. And I will say that, as we went through the turbulent skies and the constant updates from an over-communicative pilot who let us know way more than he needed to let us know, we probably just would have watched the movie and ended up there eventually, but he's like, you are going to notice that we're going over Akron, Ohio right now. That's totally normal. It's going to be okay. Just if you notice, okay, and we're going to be going over Detroit here. Just it's all right. We're on our way. And then he kept on letting us know. He's like, we have enough fuel to get us, close to it. But if they don't let us down, it is going pretty fast. It's like, just stop telling us that. Just stop. And so what was supposed to be pretty straight, they made the mistake, too, of broadcasting the flight path on the little monitor in front of you. So I just thought I would share. This is how we got to Chicago. This is not AI. This is a real picture of the front, of the monitor. And so if you need help doing the math, it could have looked like that. And I will say, if the goal was comfortable, and if the goal was convenient, and the goal was timely, then they failed. But if the goal was getting us where we needed to be safely, then mission accomplished. And I think at times we'd like to tell God what the goal should be. We say, God, like, don't you know that, I'm coming up on 30, I should be married by now. We say, God, I've been at this job long enough, I should be getting a promotion by now. God, can't you see I'm struggling to pay rent every month? God, can't you see that I'm still disappointed in this area of my life? And we say, God, it should look like this. And God says it's going to look like this. Because we go, the goal is convenient. The goal is comfortable. The goal is a straight yellow arrow. But God sometimes makes it a little more complicated than we would like it to be. See, if we're not careful, we can read that verse and say, for we know that God works all things together for the comfort. For God works all things together for the peace. For God works all things together for the happiness of those who love God. That's not. It says for the good of those who love God. So perhaps comfort and peace are not the goal of that kind of good. If we look at it just one more time, it says, and we know in all things that God works together for the good of those who love him, who've been called according to his purpose. And so we have to notice if it's not good like comfortable, then it has to be a different kind of good. And we have to look at who defines that kind of good, because if it's called according to our purpose, of course, it's going to be comfortable. It's going to be wonderful. It's going to be rainbows, unicorns, and butterflies. But it doesn't say called according to our purpose. It says called according to his purpose. That it works together according to his purpose. So there's a couple things as we unpack exactly what he works together for. And the first thing, all things work together to serve his purpose. To serve the greater purpose of God in your life and on the earth. All things work together to serve not our purpose, but his purpose. So it begs the question, what is his purpose? Because I'm already frustrated about the first half. And so let's see if we have just a little bit more hope if we keep on going. As it goes on to verse 29, it says, for those God foreknew, he also predestined. Foreknew meaning knew in advance, predestined meaning determined in advance. For those who God knew in advance, he also determined in advance to be conformed to the image of his son. You might know the story of the statue David. David is in real life a lot taller than that, a lot more naked than that. So we're just going to go with the top part of it. You try and find it's Google Images. I saw a lot of stuff, and so we're going to put that one up there. But Michelangelo, when asked, famously, he's quoted when he was asked, how did you do it? Because obviously it started as a big slab of rock. He said, I had a vision of David, and I simply chiseled away everything that wasn't David. And the things that can seem hard, the things that can seem difficult, the things that can seem out of control, might I propose that perhaps it's God chiseling away everything that isn't Jesus in you? That perhaps the good that God has planned for you isn't necessarily described as comfort and happiness. Because I think that God, he loves you. He cares about your comfort. He's not trying to make you have a miserable life, but God cares more about conformity than he does about comfort. Making you look more like Jesus. At the end of the day, on the other side of the hard thing, that your heart would be shaped more like Christ, because it can feel like loss before it feels like growth sometimes. But perhaps it's just chiseling away things that aren't like Christ. So first, it serves his purpose, but it doesn't just serve his purpose. It shapes your identity. That God is working all things together to not just serve his purpose, but to shape you to look more like Christ. That God has a purpose, and it's exactly that. When you think about conformed, it means reshaped, re-identified, molded to be in his image. And here's the crazy thing. When you are a Christian, God is not asking permission to shape you. As the orchestrator of the universe, he's orchestrating people, experiences, and circumstances to shape you, whether you like it or not. But you have the choice to get bitter or press in and allow God to make you look more like Jesus. So it says, for those that God foreknew or knew in advance, he decided in advance to be conformed to the image of his son, that he might be the firstborn among many brothers and sisters. As a middle child, any middle children in the house? Any middle children? Come on, middle children. Thank you, everyone else. We don't get a lot of that. So we thank you for everybody else. And like any younger child, like youngest child, energy in the house. Okay. Got some of those folks. Sorry, firstborns, you get everything else. So I'm just any firstborns in the house. Okay, there you go. We're happy here. It's okay. But if you're a middle child and you see it's like, okay, but Jesus could be the firstborn, all this, it's like, come on, man. But we have to remember that Paul is writing to a context that is not our own. And it's, he says firstborn, but it means something far beyond it. We have slang for things. We have things that say one thing but mean another. I remember the first time someone put tough in a text message to me, and I did have to Google it. That's the first time I was like, I am a millennial. Living in another world. They said tough. And it was like, even like, hey, what do you think about this? And they said, that's tough. And I was like, so good or bad? I Googled it. I was like, ooh, nice. It's tough. So it means something different. So he says firstborn, he's not just talking about chronological birth order. No, he's talking about preeminent, above, beyond, the pattern by which everything else should be made. He's talking about Christ as firstborn, glorified, lifted up. That he's saying that all of these things exist not only for God's purposes, not only to identify you with Christ and to build his character into you, but even beyond that. It's not just for a bigger outcome in your life, but a bigger revelation of Jesus. That through these things, it's not just that they serve his purpose or shape your identity, but they show his glory. See, this verse isn't telling you that life is going to go how you want. It's telling that God is going to accomplish something greater than what you want. That God's plan is greater than yours. But I will say I could see how this could still be unsatisfying. We could look at some 3 nicely alliterative, points. I might say, I didn't even have ChatGPT help me with that. That's off the dome. Start with S's, all that stuff. I'm like, hit him with the S's. We got the 1800 vibes. But you can go, welcome. For those of you who are new here, you like it or you don't. It's okay. But you could look at some points on the screen and go, okay, that's great. That's what church is, that's what we're supposed to do. We talk about how it's all going to be good, but I can see how it would still be unsatisfying. Because you look at the real hard thing in front of you and you go, okay, so it's supposed to serve God's purpose. It's supposed to shape me to look more like Jesus, and it's supposed to, at the end of the day, show God's glory. But I think an interesting thing to note when we look at this scripture, it says that he works together all things. It doesn't say he works together each thing. And that's important when I think about our trip on Monday to Chicago. See, we weren't the only flight going into Chicago. And half of the problem was actually not only the wind, but the wind delays other flights, which then delays other people, and it becomes congested because when we land again on that monitor, we see a picture of what the other plane situations were. There's a lot of them. So we weren't the only plane inconvenienced. There's a lot more of them. But in the midst of all of these little situations in the sky, there was a control tower that had a picture of where all of them were. And if the goal was our convenience, they failed. But it wasn't. See, the people in the control tower worked all the planes together for the good of the people who were on board. It might have seemed inconvenient to all of us, but when you look at the bigger picture, there was no plane crash. There was no catastrophic failure of anything, that even though it seemed inconvenient at the time. So rather than looking at the miscarriage and saying, well, what's the learning experience here? Rather than looking at the loss in the family and say, well, what's good about that? When we stand back and we look, we see that God used all things, that each inconvenient plane in the sky was ended up using it for God's greater good, to serve his purpose, to shape our hearts to look like Jesus, and to ultimately show his glory. And I think about just our experience on Tuesday. Now, I remember that phone call. I was in North Carolina when all this happened. Hope called and said, hey, Pastor Bryson, we got a situation. The legs on the stage, they fell off and they broke the window. And it's one of those, when you're a leader, you just get, it's like, I don't know what do we do? I guess I'll call somebody. And you hang up, you're like, who do I even? Okay, so we figured it out, and it all worked out. But it was a little bit of a, difficult day. We didn't expect that to happen. It was out of our control. I wouldn't say it wrecked Tuesday, but it made some complications. And I just think it's so interesting that the thing that went wrong on Tuesday, on Sunday, is holding up worship, and is lifting up an opportunity for the proclamation of the word of God. That the thing on Tuesday caused a riff, and the thing on Tuesday caused some extra things we had to figure out, on Sunday was an opportunity for God to get glory. That in this moment, perhaps the difficult things in your life, they're just stage pieces that fell for a day, but give it a couple of days and God's going to have an opportunity to do something great. But you're going to see it, but when you're on a Tuesday, it's hard to see Sunday. It's hard to see on the other side, but while you're in the middle of this hard thing right now, can we just take a moment and think about the hard thing that happened last year in your life? Or the hard thing that happened the year before that, or the year before that? And can I just remind you that you made it? And maybe Tuesday for you was last year, or last month, or last week. But can I tell you that Sunday is coming? Can I tell you that there's going to be an opportunity that God is going to use to make it beyond just good, like temporary success, and now we're happy, but God's going to make you look more like his son, that God's going to serve his greater purpose, and that God's going to ultimately have an opportunity for his glory to be revealed around you. So it's possible that the betrayal that you felt, it's possible that the abandonment that you've felt, it's possible that the accusations that you felt, it's possible that the abandonment, it's possible that the difficulty that you felt could be used for something greater. And I know it can, because we serve a God who is betrayed, abandoned, accused, and left to die with only his best friend and a small group of followers around him. And in the cross, we see the ultimate picture of something that we could say, how could that possibly be good? Flipped on its head to see that it was a necessary moment to fulfill God's purposes so that we could have Jesus shaped on the inside of us, so we could see his glory here on the earth. We're going to have our worship team come back, because here in just a moment, we're going to receive communion. But it's important as we kind of land the plane, if you will. That's, again, it says this in verse 30. And those he predestined, he also called. Those he called, he also justified. Those he justified, he also glorified. The New Living Translation says he also gave a heavenly dignity. And I don't know what you walked in here with, but I do know that God has a greater purpose for the things that right now feel like they're causing you pain. He has a greater plan for the things that feel like they're out of your control. For us, we look to the cross to realize that God can use things that seem like the darkest of nights for the greatest of benefits. So we're going to receive communion. We don't take communion, we receive communion, because it's freely given by Jesus. It represents his broken body for you, his spilled blood for you. And as we do this, we're going to have our communion team coming up to the right and left of the stage, and you'll come, you'll get a piece of bread, and they'll say, Christ's body broken for you. You'll dip it in the cup, it's grape juice, and they'll say, Christ's blood poured out for you. And then return to your seat, and in a moment of prayer, you can receive communion on your own. It's an individual moment that we have together corporately. And as you do so, I want us to do it as a representation rather, of the thing in your life that seems really difficult. Reminding yourself in a physical way that God can use seemingly impossible situations, the darkest of dark, for the greatest of good. Allow me to pray. Jesus, thank you. Thank you for your broken body and spilled blood. In this moment, we receive these communion elements as a representation of your broken body and spilled blood on our behalf. We thank you. You didn't have to do it, but so that we could be made right with you, God, so that we could be justified with you, so that we could be seen as blameless in your sight if we just put our faith in Jesus. So Lord, just as you said, we do this in remembrance of you.